Good evening and welcome to COVID Conversations. My name is Gillian. I am the founder here at New Roots Community Group, and COVID Conversations is all about us bringing you topics where we discuss things and we just bring you information, we bring you knowledge, we support you through everything that is happening. So today's COVID Conversations is COVID Conversations with the Sika Platform. And to those of you that understand or are familiar with Tree, you'll understand that Sika means money. So it is to do with finance. I won't go into too much detail. I will give Linda a chance to kind of explain what the platform is about and what it endeavors to do. Before that, I just want to give out a few shouts and just say, if you haven't already, please do check out our other videos over at newrootscommunitygroup.org. We've got videos on career, we've got other videos on finance, education, and we've got a wealth of topics on there. So please do make sure you do check it out. And get some information, get some advice, share it. If there's anything you'd like to feedback, please do send us that in. And I'd like to also give a big thank you to the National Lottery Fund, who made all of this possible. So thank you. Without them, we wouldn't have been able to bring you COVID Conversations. So without further ado, I am going to bring in Linda. So hi, Linda.
Hello.
Hi. So I'm sure everybody is looking forward to this conversation and looking forward to everything that you have to share. I'll give you a few moments to kind of introduce yourself. I'll go quiet while you introduce yourself and I get ready to set you up.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gillian. And thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity and platform for us to be able to share our story. As well. So yes, my name is Linda Mensah. I am the founder of the Sika Platform, as you introduced. So the Sika Platform is just a personal finance space which endeavors to educate, provide guidance and coaching for immigrants. The idea is for us to be able to empower ourselves, to be able to make sound financial decisions that would help us and our families to be able to lead the lives that we want and to be able to build wealth in the process as well. So what you tend to find is normally whatever the negative statistic out there about people not having enough money, people not being paid well enough in jobs and stuff like that, whatever horrible statistics out there, you realize that you have to, when you come down, it's even worse within the immigrant community. We are affected more adversely than some other, whatever the national statistics is. So this is one of the platforms that we intend to try and then help to make things much better through education and guidance and coaching, as I've said before. My aim is just for every immigrant to be able to make sound financial decisions for them and then for their families as well. That's my aim.
Amazing. And if you were to sum it up in just a quick sentence, what would you say is the driving force behind Sika Platform?
I think for me, it's so on my own personal finance journey, for instance, I think within the personal finance space, most of the time you find people doing wonderful things. So you find someone, you might listen to a podcast or read a blog or maybe even a YouTube video, and it's things like, how I paid, 30,000 worth of debt in 6 months, or how I saved 50,000 in a year and things like that. And it's all wonderful that these people have been able to do that. But when you drill down, you click into the video or you read further down, and the kind of things they are looking at is, I moved back home, I moved back to my parents, which is good for them. They have that option to do that. Or I used to go out with my friends maybe twice a week. I don't do that anymore. Or I've cut it down to maybe twice a month. Or I used to have takeout every 3-4 days, which is all well and good. And they've sort of done all of that to be able to get themselves to the stage that they are. But I I don't know many immigrants who are out there who are having takeout like 3-4 times a week and going out for drinks every weekend and like every Friday and stuff like that. So I wanted something that's practical for me, and then for the people that I know, and for my community. And that's where this came about. Because, and then if you say, oh, move back home, for us, for most of us first generation immigrants, we have no other home to move to unless we sort of relocate back. But those options are not available to us. So I wanted something much more practical, something doable for people like me, and then within my community as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'm now going to put your slides up.
Yeah, thank you. So these 4 blocks are essentially what the sort of the building blocks, or call them pillars, of the financial the Sika platform. So I first look at financial education, and they say we've all heard it before, knowledge is power. And with that power comes confidence with whatever it is that you're doing. So if you get more financial education, get the knowledge, educate yourself, then you will then be able to make the sound financial decisions that I talked about for you, something that suits you and your family. And I think everyone deserves to do that, and you deserve to be able to do that for yourself. But it all starts with having that knowledge and be able to determine what's right for you and what's not right for you. Because as we all know, what's right for one family might not be right for the other family, even though they might have very similar circumstances, but it simply might not be the right thing for them. So it's having that kind of information. A lot of time you hear a lot of rule of thumbs and do it this way, do it that way. My aim is just to give information that suitable for the individual or that for that family looking to make a change in their finances, or looking to make progress within their finances and determine what's right or wrong for them. Then with that, we would look into our habits, and with our everyday habits, how often we are swiping that card, when we are swiping that card, when we are how long we are putting that information in. I want us to be able to be very aware of that. If you need to make a purchase, make a purchase. If you don't need to do it, do it. It's all about not just purchases, really. It's all about when you decide to make a particular money move, when you decide to spend, when you decide to hold back, and things like that. But that is something, and those everyday habits, because they will form the steps for you to essentially to ultimately get into your financial independence with financial freedom, however you choose to see it. Those habits will form the steps that take you there. So being very mindful of it, what's going on in our minds, what's driving our purchases or our lack of purchases for certain things, to actually have a look at all of that. And I also want to be able to normalize talking about money. So I want us to be able to be comfortable enough, talk about money with our friends, our family, talk about it, make it so normal, and that we're able to share tips, share the knowledge, what's working for one person, what's not working, tips, everything, help build ourselves in that way. Once we normalize talking about it and it becomes so normal, okay, we're doing this, okay, I can't afford this, okay, that will do, how about if we do it that way, things like that. Once we sort of normalize it and then pass that on even to our children as well, normalize talking about money to them. It's never too early to start, or it's never even too late to start, I should say. Just talk to them about it. Let them know how, you've got to put value out there to be able to earn money. Once you earn that money, how do you decide to spend it? It's entirely up to you. This is the information out there. You make that decision from there. Then one area I would also want to touch on would be like within family support. So most immigrants out there have got a responsibility or an obligation to help support family back home, which is something we do. It's a fantastic thing that we do within our communities. It's part of our culture. So I want conversations about that, and I want education and financial education material that takes that into consideration. That cultural consideration is taken into it is considered, and also to be able to again normalize it, make it okay to say no and then to say yes, and then want to be able to help, but then not to get yourself into debt, or not to get yourself stressed out, or be too stressed that you can't even focus on your own personal finance development. So then once you get your finances into shape, you will be able to give and support family like you've never been able to do. But you've always got to look after yourself first. Make sure you've got the basic building blocks in place to then be able to help. So all of these things, the education, our habits, talking about money, and then with our family support, all of this, I feel it comes together for us. It's something that comes together for us to be able to then move forward in our finances, and then it takes away fear, it takes away stress. Once we know we've got the information, this is where I am, this is where I want to get to, and within these are the steps in between and how I'm going to get there. This, even if the situation is dire, or even if it's bad, because there's a plan in place to get you to where you want. You are not stressed, and you are also not panicking about that. So that's what mainly what forms or what we've sort of focused on within Sika Platform. So for this presentation, what I've done is I've picked 4 areas that I feel want to share a lot to sort of teach about. And I know that people, it might not be new to people, to some people, but it will be something that would be able to help us make a small shift into, it might not be a big shift, but even if it's a small shift, into how we see money, how we see finances, and be able to help us. So the first one I want to talk about is the spending plan. So your spending plan, essentially, people call it a budget, or call it whatever you want to call it. But that's essentially you telling your money what to do, where to go. So within your spending plan, you've got however much it costs to be you, however much it costs to keep you alive, whether it's your mortgage, rent, whatever it is. If you're paying down debt, you should also have a debt pay down plan within there, so you know exactly how much you're paying towards which debt. I mean, if we have time after at the end, we might be able to talk a bit more about that, but I won't go into that. But this is assuming that you already have a debt payoff plan. That's if you do have debt, you know how much is being paid towards each one. So the whole idea is not to do a plan when you actually have the money, is to do that even before that money hits your account, or whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever frequency you get paid, and whether it's the one income or multiple streams of income, how much is coming in, and you can then decide where each one goes. Now within that, it's not to deprive yourself, it's not about depriving yourself, it's just about telling yourself where that money is going, and also tracking it as well, to be able to determine. Once you've done it for a while, you might decide to make changes to certain categories. So if you are allocating, I don't know, £100 towards food, for instance, and you keep going over, you know that, okay, I need to adjust it and give myself a bit more for that category. And there's no point deceiving yourself and writing a small amount when it's not going to, it's not going to help. So the whole idea is about telling your money what to do for you. If you've got, obviously your savings, how much is going into savings, how much is going towards keeping you. It's not to deprive you at all. It's not to, we all don't like to have to say no to certain things. We like nice things. We like nice experiences. The whole idea is to make sure that there is a plan for it. That you are consciously making those purchases, or consciously making those decisions on what to spend on and what not to spend on. So, and then for us as immigrants, again, going to that, most of us will have some kind of money for family. It's already in there. That's what you have to do. So you make sure you plan for it. It doesn't take you by surprise. There's something that you do every month. One thing I also advise on the platform is, even if you have a regular payment that goes out to family or a regular commitment that you're doing, it's always worth having a small pot of money, maybe something that you can put maybe 20-30 pounds, maybe even 50 pounds in there for those kind of emergencies that you might have, specifically regarding our commitments to family. That way, if something comes up when it's specific to family, or that kind of commitment, you need to send money back home, you've got a pot to draw from, and you don't mess up your main plan, your main goal that you have going, whatever financial goals that you set for yourself. That is a small pot there. And even if you have a big expenditure that your small pot of money cannot handle, at least there is a bit of a buffer there, and you don't have to spend too much from your main pot. So it almost feels like for us, for immigrants, depending on who, not everyone has got these financial these family obligations, but it almost feels like when people have got their big pot of emergency fund for, I don't know, a car breakdown, traffic tickets, or emergency dentist appointment, and all of that, you still seem to, for us as immigrants, you need to have like a small pot of an emergency fund, or another emergency fund, or maybe even a sinking fund for that. It's something that I advise that people do if it's something that you feel you can consider, or if you feel like you'll be able to absorb any blows from your main emergency pot, then fair enough, that's fine, you go with that. But then that's something that people can use if they want. Okay, now I want to move on to insurances. Now, insurances is one of those things that I feel like within our communities we don't talk about enough. It's seen as a waste of money, and it's very much like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. We have this sort of, okay, God will provide kind of mindset, which I think sometimes doesn't really help us, because insurance, when done properly, is actually very beneficial and actually saves you money. So I'm talking about all forms of insurance, really. Again, going back to what suits you as an individual and then for your family. So if I take something, for example, life cover, for instance, it's one of those things that I feel like we don't talk enough about. And if you talk about, it's like, oh, God forbid, you are bringing negativity into my life, or what are you trying to imply, that I'm going to lose someone, or I'm going to die, or stuff like that. But in theory, we are informed about deaths all the time. We're going for funerals all the time. There are aunties out there every weekend. They are at a funeral. Now with COVID, there isn't really funerals happening, but I know aunties, uncles out there who are constantly at funerals. So we know that these things are going to happen. I think it's one of those things where we also need to get a bit more information about and know what insurance would do. Will take that financial burden away from the people that we love. And I think it's a risk that we can't seem to get our mind around. So we can understand the risk of a phone dropping and the screen cracking, or you leaving your phone on a public transport, or in somewhere, in a shop or somewhere. So we can ensure that we can sort of anticipate that risk with regards to, for example, a phone, but we can't seem to anticipate the risk that's associated with our life, our loved ones, and stuff like that. So with life insurance, for example, it takes that financial burden away from your family. And if something, touch wood, something was to happen to you, the least of their worries would be where their next meal was going to come from, or how their rent was going to be paid, or how their mortgage was going to be paid for. And I know within our communities, we are very communal. We are so loving. If something happens, you have friends and family coming over, people contributing and stuff like that. But that should only be a bonus. It shouldn't be the thing that you rely on in the event of, unfortunately, someone passing. So it'll be like sound like a life cover insurance should be standard for most, if you have a child, or any dependents at all, for that matter. It doesn't even have to be a child. If you have any dependents at all, it's something that you can have. You can speak to a financial advisor, and you can get one really, really cheap. Maybe even cheaper than your phone insurance. Things like critical illness cover that would provide you with a lump sum of money should you suffer some critical illness like cancer, usually there is a list of illnesses that they would give you that the particular policy would cover. Again, if you were to suffer something like that, you don't want to have to be thinking about where that scan is what was going to happen, you having to wait on the NHS. Something, we are lucky to have the NHS, but what if you needed something really quickly? You could always go private, and that lump sum would help you do that, so that you can concentrate on you getting better, rather than focusing on your finances. Or if that illness became terminal, touch wood, then at least you can focus on spending your last few months or however long you have with your family and not have to worry about finances. So it's one of those things that I do want us to get out of that mentality about God will provide, or it's not going to happen to me, I'm fine, and seeing it as you sort of evoking evil on you rather than you protecting what might happen in the future. Then I also want us to look at how we invest in our children as well. So on this side, I want for us to see it in terms of both time and then our money as well. So, I think in the UK, we're quite lucky. We have, we're not required to buy exercise books. So I know in Ghana, for instance, at the beginning of every term, you have to buy books, exercise books, textbooks and stuff like which can be quite pricey. But here, I know most schools are different, and maybe different boroughs operate differently. But we're not really required to buy books and stuff like pens. I think even in primary school, they would even go as far as giving you pencils and pens. But it's one of those things where you can also have a look and see how you can support that from your home, and building a small library for the kids at home to support whatever is lacking within the school sort of reading catalogue, supporting them. In that sense, some kids might require, extra tuition because maybe a school is not challenging them enough, or maybe they are behind. Children require tuition for different reasons. If you are in the position to do it yourself, then by all means, that's the time that you are investing in there. If you're not in the position to do that by yourself, either because you don't have time or it's a particular subject area that you're not confident in, then you can also pay for tuition to actually get these kids up to a certain standard, because it's getting more and more competitive every day, and you want them to be able to flourish as much and be able to thrive as well, be able to compete when they go out there, build their confidence and everything. So whatever money you can, and that will sometimes require money. So tuition doesn't really have to be academic. It might be a particular skill that child has got, maybe music lessons, art lessons, swimming. I know, all of that, and that require you just paying the money, enrolling them in the course is usually not enough. You still got to take them there and do all of that. So what I want us, I think within our community, sometimes we don't really focus on that as much as we should. These days, the traditional type of jobs, we don't have those kind of traditional type of roles anymore. You have different jobs that maybe 5 years ago, we never really thought of. So someone is calling themselves, oh, I'm a social media strategist, or I'm an online this. There's so many different forms of jobs, I should say. So you being able to let that child explore, do whatever it is that they want to do, whether it's sports, whether it's art, music, whatever it is that they want to do, spending that money in getting those courses or books, whatever it is, and then also getting the time to be able to sit with them or take them to these places, and also just passing on the skills that we have learned. I find that growing up, we had so many skills that I feel like we could actually pass on to our kids. There were certain games that we played, that really stimulated our brains a lot. This is pre-gadgets and stuff like that. So these are things that we can sort of spend that time, pass on those skills onto them. And then that is not, it does require money for some of them, but then also there's a time as well. Is that time investment into the children as well? Again, it's something that I think, within our community, we can do better with. Okay. And finally, I want to move on to wealth building. And I think this is one of the areas where I don't hear it so much now, but then you used to hear, oh, I'm just going to get some money and I'm just going to retire back home. I'm going to wherever, wherever is sunny, but either back home or someplace sunny and things like that. And then you speak to these people 5, 10 years, 20 years down the line, they are still here. So you're not going anywhere. Either for different reasons. Sometimes, they built a family here. They no longer know as many people as they did before they traveled. So it gets more difficult. So that wish fades away gradually. So I think it's coming to terms with the fact that, this is your home. And whatever it is, wherever you decide to spend your pension days, whether you decide to travel the world, you decide to move to a completely new country, wherever you decide to be, to still try and put certain things in place. And you not wanting to retire here shouldn't be a reason why you don't put certain things in place. So one of the things we talk about is investment. So once you've been able to set aside some savings and you've got your plan, you've got your life on track, everything, your financial life on track and everything, investment is something to consider. So with investment, I'm talking investment into the stocks market. So you're looking at whether it's a lump sum or whether it's regular payments, but you're looking at a minimum of 5 years. So usually it's long term, 5 years plus, something you can be putting for yourself, or you could even invest for your children, if that's what you're looking to do. Having a regular payment going in there, or having a small sum of money or a lump sum of money going in there. So that is something that we don't tend to focus on. I'm not an expert in investments. Definitely speak to your bank or an independent financial advisor who will be able to do a review and see what suits you or what amount to put in there. Something to consider. And in the long run, investment is one of the ways where compounding interest can really work in your favor. So you sort of start putting stuff bit by bit there. And when you're ready to retire, so in the long term, when you're ready to retire, or maybe even before you retire in the future, you can actually go into it, withdraw it, depending on how the markets are doing. You can actually go into it. And that's one way that you can be able to build some long-term wealth for yourself and then for the next generation as well. Then things like pensions, again, going back to, I don't want to retire here, I'm going back home doing this. Most people lose sight of the pension. It's always good to start with your employer. If your employer offers pension, you put in, make sure that they are contributing for you. Some of them would even match whatever you are able to put in. So again, speak to your human resources management, have a look at that, see how much you will be able to put aside. And the good thing is, it's tax free. So if for ease of maths, if you're paying maybe 1% or 2%, and that equates to maybe £50, for instance, that £50 might go in there. If you're lucky, you have an employer who matches it, they add £50 to it. Now that's £100 that you are topping your pension up with, your normal pension that they paid for you, you're topping that up with. Now, if you were to withdraw that, if you were to say, okay, I don't want that money, I want my £50 to come to me every month, that £50 will probably end up in your hands, as in your in your bank, as less than £40. So really, if you think about it, it's a way, because it's tax-free, it's a way that you'll be able to build more. And then, as I said, if your employer is one that matches it, even better. Again, speak to your human resources management, and they will be able to give you the breakdown of what, play around with the figures, see what works for you, and start. And then, if you already have a pension, again, don't leave it. Find your login details, speak to the people that's managing it. Most of them would send an annual statement anyway, so you should see where you are. Again, you can play around with the figures, play around with different retirement ages, and see where that puts you. So if you were, that would help you make a plan. Say, okay, if I was retired, I could comfortably retire at this age, or if I want to to have more money, then maybe I have to push my retirement a year, or I need to start contributing more. So again, that is one way of you making sure that you do not have to depend on the government or on your children. You shouldn't be using your children as your pension plan, and you shouldn't be relying on the government, because our generation might not even have state pension. Just depend on how things go, or even if we do, it's going to be something very minimal. So if you're self-employed, you could also look into doing this on a private basis. Again, speak to a financial advisor who will be able to do that for you, because most of the time you see that dependence on children. You want a situation whereby if your children are doing stuff for you financially, it's just a bonus. And then if the government is giving you something, that's just extra, and that's not you're not relying on that as your main source of income to do that. Then also there is mortgage. Now, saving for a deposit is really hard. And I think some of the things that most people see as out of their reach. And I'm quite interested to get people to understand that it could be within your reach if that's something that you want to do. Try, have a look at it. Start saving from somewhere. Explore ways. If there are government schemes that you want to explore, it's fine. Again, there is a lot of advantages and disadvantages about these government schemes. So sometimes, is that something you want to do? Again, look into it, really, really well. Get some more information. We post information on our site as well, something to help you be able to make certain decisions about mortgages or finances in general. Most people don't also realize that you can have the right to buy. So if you live in a council property, I think sometimes people sort of look at council properties, sort of look down on it in a way that it might not be as bad. So if you already live in one, even if you can't buy it, if you've got older children, you might be able to pass that right on to them. So the right to buy essentially gives you a very good discount, actually. If you've lived in the borough, or if you've lived in that particular property for a while, you are able to buy it at a very, very discounted rate. And usually it's really, really generous. And so it's something that you could explore. Have that. You might end up having to pay a bit more in mortgage than you would in council rent. Definitely your mortgage is going to go higher, but it's one way of you getting yourself on the ladder, if that's in the property ladder, if that's an aim for you. But I just want you to think about the fact that it's not out of your reach. It could be something that's within your reach in doing that. In sort of getting yourself. So these are the three things that I sort of chose to talk about today regarding getting yourself some long-term wealth and building that. And I just wanted to sort of end on the note of I think sometimes, as I've mentioned before, it's very easy for you to look within the personal, look at examples out there and maybe get frustrated. So whatever steps that you are taking to get to your financial freedom or your financial independence, it's all about taking that time. Once you have that plan in place, trying to take your time and practice that patience. It takes constant practice. You need to practice and practice and practice and know that, okay, it's going to take me this length of time. I cannot rush it. They say there is no shortcut to the top of the palm tree. You're not going to get any shortcut. It's an African proverb. There isn't going to be a shortcut. Unless you win the lottery or your billionaire uncle shows up and gives you money, that would be your only shortcut. But without those, it will take time. And then once you have those steps in place, it's all about getting that education, knowing what suits you. And once you have that plan in place, you can then relax, knowing that you are on the right track. Keep tracking yourself, keep checking yourself. Know that you are on the right track to getting to where you want to be. So that's where I end. You can find more about us. If you want to reach out, our email is info@thesikaplatform.com. We have a Facebook and an Instagram presence. It's at the Sika Platform. You can find us there, where we share loads and loads and loads of financial information. all in the effort of empowering immigrants to be able to make sound financial decisions and build wealth from it.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. One thing I'd like to, before I get onto the questions, one thing I'd like you to, do you mind elaborating a little bit more on, was it the spending, like the template?
The spending plan?
Yes, please.
So your spending plan is basically your budget. So
okay.
It's you telling your money what to do. So the idea is whether you're a pen and paper person, whether you're a spreadsheet person or an app on your phone kind of person, the whole idea is you put in pen to paper well before the money hits the account. So you are telling, you know how much is coming in, whether it's from one source of income or multiple sources of income, you know how much is coming in and you know how you're going to spend that money. And then within there, that's why I mentioned that everyone is different. Within there, you might have a debt payoff plan. So you might have credit cards or loans that you are paying off. Within there, you have a plan and you have a date where, all your debt will be paid off and stuff like that. So you've got that in place. So you know how much is going towards your debt. You know how much is going towards being you, what it takes to keep you, whether it's a roof over your head, food and all of that. And then I also mentioned your bills and stuff, all of that. And then for us immigrants, if you have any obligations back home, that's already in there. It's already accounted for. It's not going to take you by surprise. So it's about having that plan in place. And it's not really about depriving yourself. It's about you deciding where you are choosing where you are spending your money that month or that year. There might be times where you might be working towards a plan. So you might decide to do sort of delay gratification a little bit. So you might say, go old school frugal, but that's for a short time. That, okay, for the next 6 months, this is my aim. That's what I want to do. So you go all frugal and do that. But really it's about, as long as you're conscious of it and doing what, you are telling that money where to go. And it's not just doing it once a month and just leaving it. Check-ins, regular checkups. If it's, every week, see where you're going. Am I still on track? That's been paid. That needs to be paid next. This is coming out next. Am I on track for how much I intended to save? Things like that. But then being very conscious of the things that you're saying yes to and the ones you're saying no to. Because we don't really like saying no to things. We all like, we like nice things and like to do that. So it's just about you being in control, it putting yourself in control of how we are spending that money.
Amazing. Okay, so we'll move on to the questions that we had. What advice would you give someone who might not be able to access mainstream bank accounts?
Okay, so a mainstream bank account. So I think with this, maybe it just depends on where they are. If they are sort of new into the country and they probably haven't got a credit score and stuff like that, you can have a savings account or one that doesn't require credit score. So I know Nationwide, for instance, had like a cash builder account. So they have these accounts where you still get a card, you can have money come in, but it's basic in and out. You can't really do much with in terms of overdraft and some of them we might not be able to do direct debits with. Post office accounts are good ones to start off with. So this question, I'm not sure where that person is in their journey. So if they are new into the country, probably these answers are sort of for them. They don't, at that stage, they don't really need some facilities like overdraft facilities and stuff like that. So all they need is somewhere for their money to be paid and then for them to be able to draw it out and then live their life. If it's a case of if I don't know, maybe you got into debt and maybe your credit is bad, you can't get any accounts and stuff like that. What I always say with credit score, it's about time. It's just time. You just need to give it time. There's no point keeping on applying. It makes things even worse. There's no point. See, it's a case of, again, going back old school, doing a straight money in, money out account for a while, and then allow the credit to repair itself. That's all you need. No point in paying money to anyone who says they're going to fix your credit for you. They won't be able to do that. It's just a case of having if it's someone who is in debt or have a bad credit rating and are not able to do it, I'm assuming that a plan is in place with the debtors to pay those accounts. At least there is an arrangement in place. Then you go back to old school, money in, money out. You need to reset and then just allow it time.
Amazing, thank you. Can you give any advice on obtaining a mortgage for immigrants? I think they mean, can you give immigrants any advice on obtaining a mortgage?
Mortgage, yeah. I think with that, it will just be speaking to a broker, a mortgage broker. That would be the best place to start. Normally, they know which banks or which lenders are more willing to lend to, maybe based on your income. So if you say immigrant, I mean, you're going to show ID, so you do need to be legal to be able to do it. So one bank might say, oh, if you have a non-UK account, you need to have maybe at least indefinite leave to remain. Another bank might say, oh, as long as maybe you have like a 5-year visa, we are able to give you. It just depends on, so the best place would be to speak to a mortgage broker, one that knows, has access to the open market, all the lenders available, and they'll be able to tell them what your situation is. There's no need lying, trying to conceal information. Tell them what your situation is and say, look, this is my situation. These are the kind of documents I've got. This is my income. This is everything. Which banks are more likely to be able to assist me, or are more likely? Because it depends with every lender. So before you have any borrowing, they have credit score. They have their external credit scoring system, which will look at how you operate your accounts with others. That's where Experian and Equifax, they use that report from there. And then they also have their own internal credit scoring system. So as I said, one bank might say, you are too risky for me. Another bank might say, come in, we welcome you. So it really depends. Speak to a mortgage broker, let them know what your circumstances are, and they will be able to determine which lenders are more favorable for your situation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, so those are the main questions that we had in. Before we start wrapping up, I would just like to, just so that people know exactly where to find you. And so, do you offer consultations?
I do coaching one-on-one if that's something that people are looking to do. So essentially, we do spend a lot of time on the budget, the spending plan, because that's where everything starts from, and then we'll talk about where they want to get to, and then we'll take it from there. But again, it will be on individual basis. What's more important to one person might not be as important to the others, but there are certain basics that you would have in place. Your sound emergency fund somewhere, a plan to, if you have debt, a plan to pay that off. If you're looking for a mortgage and your goal is savings, again, we'll try and get you there. And that's going back to things like the delayed gratification that I talk about. I'm not really all about hardcore frugality. I like to be flexible, but sometimes it's required. You might take it, for the next 6 months, that's what I need to do, or for the next 1 year. If you need to do it, then you do it. And then to sort of get you to where you want to be, because sometimes you have to be a bit uncomfortable to then get yourself out of certain situations. So yeah, I do offer that.
Amazing. And the best place to get in contact with you, the email address?
The email address, info@the Sika Platform, all one word, .com. And again, on our socials, we are present on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram. Again, if you want to DM me, it's fine. Take it from there.
Perfect.
Is there a question?
No, it's me. I've just put your details up just so that people...
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Amazing. Okay, so thank you so much.
That's all right.
When our paths crossed in regards to this resonated with me so much. As a daughter of an immigrant, I see the need for what you are offering. Like, it's so much needed, and not just for immigrants themselves, but also for the legacy they leave behind. So for the second generation, the third generation, what information they're able to pass down to them, what habits, what kind of traits they're able to pass down. So this is amazing. Such a lovely idea and such a needed idea. So thank you.
It's so true. Like, whatever we have, you pass it on even without realizing it. I remember when I was new into this country, I used to hear like aunties, like friends, and like that auntie uncle generation, and it was more like, oh, I know now I'm the auntie generation, but yeah, at the time it was like, oh, you're so lucky, they gave you £5,000 credit limit, that's really good, you're so lucky. But no, you're not lucky. It's just it's just it's the beginning of some horrible things to happen, because then if you're not educated enough, you just start treating that as your own money, and then people saying things like, oh, you can't get a mortgage, I'm going back home like straight away. Mortgage, it takes you so long to pay, you never finish paying. And at the time, it was so easy. Most people have missed out on fantastic opportunities to be able to own their own homes. But at the time, they were so afraid and saying, oh, I'm going back home straight away. I think it's much better now. There's a lot more education out there, and it's a much better. But we still got a bit of work to do. So hopefully I can get to the people who need it.
Yeah, so anybody watching, please do share her details. Please do, like, even if you don't need it, remember sharing knowledge is how we grow. So please do share. Thank you to everybody that's joined us today. Anyone watching the replay, thank you so much for taking the time out. Thank you once again to Linda of the Sika Platform. Thank you so much for your time and your information. And thank you to the Lottery Fund for funding this. And thank you to our audience, because without you, we wouldn't have a need. So on that, we are going to sign out. I hope everybody has a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. Bye.
Bye.